Zillow claims 220 million unique users monthly, and they're basically going to be all in the United States per their prior information. How can that be? Is every adult in America plus half the children on Zillow? And if so, what does that mean about the website? We're going to get into that. I'm Bill Gross, my weekly real estate update. So the battle royale between Zillow and Compass and Rocket slash Redfin, these gigantic corporate monopolies, all vying for domination of the real estate market. But there's something very odd about where they're playing now. Last week, the competition of control started with under the false story that Compass wanted to have their listings private before they went public, and then they turned around and signed a deal with Redfin to have their properties that are exclusive shown to 60 million people. There's only 5 million sales a year, so something there didn't make sense. I went a little further this week. I saw in the news that the Chicago area MLS called MRED removed Zillow because Zillow was not putting on certain listings, that was putting on certain listings. The judge then ordered the MLS to add them back on. What's behind this? Are they really trying to just be better at serving customers selling houses? The answer is no. There must be something more than that. The whole thing is just too confusing to understand. So let's get into it in a little more detail. So not only did last week we have more disruption, but you have another challenger, another MLS is now stepping in saying to Zillow, we don't want you to tell us that we can't put properties on when they've been hidden from the market for a while. And so what you've had now is a couple brokers, Compass most famously, and a couple MLSs who are attempting to be the one nationally, seeing their opportunities by kind of screwing over everybody else who was their partners and their former customers by trying to dominate the market. So this is just a battle of, I don't think about better product or better service. It's really about domination in a zero-sum game. And so this has gone now, Tennessee's largest MLS, which is called Realtex, has now gotten into the same act of battling with Zillow. Well, I saw a number in the one of the articles, and then I just had to actually go to Zillow's actual webpage to read for myself what they're claiming. Zillow claims million average monthly unique users. Now, over 90% are in America. 220 million. We only have 335 million Americans. We only have about 100 or about 200 million adults. So it means every single adult in America is on Zillow monthly. It says monthly average user, unique. Something's not adding up. The math is not mathing. And so I decided to get into detail and try to take a look at Zillow's past comments as to where the traffic comes from by percentage and apply that to that number. And here's what I came up with. If you look at all the people who are on Zillow, about 32 million a month are renters. 42 million own homes already. They're just tracking what their house is worth. 28 million are future buyers. Now, keep in mind about 4 to 5 million buy a year. So that means that the average buyer is looking on Zillow for about 5 years. This sounds right to me. Statistically, that number has always been 5 to 7 years. About 655,000 professionals like me that go on Zillow monthly. I do that. And Zillow surfers who are just going for entertainment, over half, 116 million. This is where the breakdown comes, because Zillow will use statistics to try to embarrass real estate agents and say that real estate agents don't return calls, real estate agents don't return leads fast enough. But again, if you look at the numbers, only 28 million are ever going to buy a house in the next 5 or 7 years. The rest are really never going to look to buy a house. Why would I want to respond to phone calls and emails and leads from people? I guess the answer is maybe I do, maybe I don't, depending on my time and schedule and how they come into me. But Zillow has used this as a cudgel to put down realtors as not being service-oriented and then selling these leads to other real estate agents who, in my mind, are going broke, overpaying Zillow for leads, which the vast majority really aren't worth anything. And so a couple of conclusions I made from this data. One is buyers are being marketed to way in advance. You can see that if they're getting 28 million buyers, they're looking to hook up a buyer 7 years before they actually buy anything. And that's about how long the average person starts looking. So now you have a buyer being educated and being trained by Zillow what the market's supposed to look like. That's dangerous. Second, renters. This explains why Zillow has moved into the rental market. And if they destroy the housing market of home purchases, if they destroy the American dream of buying a house, but they make money on renters as a monopoly, they don't care. It's just a business to them. That's some insight into what Zillow's motivations might be. Third, sellers, virtually every seller is over the next 10 years Got to sell the house on average every 10 years. And so they're all on Zillow. And then lastly, over half the traffic is pointless traffic. And I think it's important to understand that when they talk about the average response to lead, my experience is the vast majority of the leads they're talking about are not of any real interest. Then I dig a little deeper into their financial statements in Zillow recently. And their quarterly report, this is a company's worth $10 billion. And one of the things they say is that while sales are flat, the mortgage revenue increased 56%. And the rental revenues increased by 42%. So while Americans struggle to buy houses, Zillow is making a fortune. They're helping to destroy the newer real estate agents who rely on buyers and buyer leads. And the overall market, I think, is being hurt by them politically as well as by their business. And you have them profiting on renters. So if everybody just becomes a renter, Zillow makes money. They really have no interest in doing anything other than that. I think that's the real danger of this. So you look at these powerful companies that have such a big impact on our market. And if their incentives are the destruction of our American dream, and they're going to make mega profits, and keep in mind, Zillow is worth $10 billion. They're worth more than any real estate company other than Compass, which is trying to be its own monopoly. So this is why I think these are very, very dangerous times. These companies are, I think they have great brand recognition, falsely so. I think they're great at entertaining, but I don't think they serve home buyers. They certainly don't serve the real estate industry as a whole. And as soon as we understand that and treat them appropriately, I think we'll all be better off. So again, all the smoke and all the fighting, the underlying issue is not about them trying to be a better service today and searching for homes. It's about them owning the real estate industry 5 and 10 years from now. Okay, let's dig a little deeper into the current news. I always start off with the market, taking a look at interest rates, because I think that's really the driver of where we're at. I think I have the wrong. There we go. There's the interest rates. Interest rates are basically close flat. Again, last week down a little bit, 6.56. So we've been as low as 6, been as high as 7 a year ago. We're kind of in the middle of that. And that, while it's not as good as 6% or below, it's really good enough. We have good buyer demand right now for housing, particularly in areas like I'm in Southern California. We still have a bit of a buyer's market. A seller's market, but buyers are benefiting from the lower price. And on the inventory side, because for a long time we said that the issue was inventory, we needed more houses available for people to buy in order to be successful. Here we have the chart showing the inventory is actually higher. Here it is right here. Higher than last year. So we continue to correct. We're getting back towards normal, but still the inventory is less homes are for sale today than at any time other than COVID in history. This is the highest amount of inventory post-COVID, but still below the normal years pre-COVID. So we're still adjusting and getting back to a normal housing market, but we're still a long ways away from achieving that. Now, locally, because real estate is local, I use Altos Research. They do a good job of summarizing all the factors, and they show Los Angeles to be still a 36. We've been there for months now, which means there's a bit of a seller's market. Again, that's, I think, more a result of burning down 18,000 homes than it is anything else. I think that we just don't build enough homes in Los Angeles, and as a result, we are able to keep up with the demand and get people houses at affordable prices. Okay, let's take a look at the news. I think there's some good news. Here is a press release done by United States Federal Housing. U.S. housing prices went up 1.7% year over year. So what that means is people own houses. You own $1 million house, your house went up $17,000 in value. For a lot of people, the house increase is more than they're paying monthly. If they had a mortgage for the last 10 years, maybe they locked in a lower payment and a lower rate. So this is where wealth comes in. And even though the real estate market is bad and there's crashes and there's adjustments, nationally overall, I mean, stock markets, I have stocks that are down 10, 20, 30% or more. Here you have houses in a slower market still going up 1.7% per year, which creates great wealth for most Americans own houses. There's another came out, my favorite sources is Bigger Pockets podcast. And they did a kind of an analysis that they brought up, I think were really interesting. One is, days on market climbed to new multi-year highs. It now takes about to sell a house, are more agreeable to cutting prices. And I think that's what's keeping, by correction, what's happening in the market right now is we're seeing rising slowly. Days on market rising slowly. Demand up slightly. The overall loan applications for purchases are up about 5% year over year. And that's a good sign too. So more buyers getting into the market. Sellers are cutting prices faster. So some sellers have to sell and cut prices. Some sellers don't. And so overall, I think that the bigger podcast, which really has their hand on the marketplace, does a good job of telling us that we're in the midst of a good, solid, reasonable, thoughtful correction period in the marketplace. I don't think we want a dramatic change like we had during 2008 and 9, but we're getting sellers are having to hold off on getting the increase they used to get, and buyers have a chance to buy with prices holding steady, more inventory to choose from, and lower payments. Lastly, I've covered this story a few times. I just don't think enough people understand what's going on. For all talk about homelessness and wanting to solve the problem, and we have a mayor's race coming up, I'm not going to get in the sides of it either way. But the truth is, we don't really care about the homeless. And I say that because some of our most powerful institutions in Los Angeles, UCLA being one of them, Brentwood School being another one, basically squat on land that was donated to house homeless veterans. And this lawsuit's gone on for about 14 years, I think. I think UCLA's been on the losing side continuously, but continues to appeal it. And then this week, UCLA was hosting the College World Series regional on this land that was donated by somebody in the 1800s to the Veterans Administration to house homeless veterans. And so we have plenty of land. You could probably take that land and sell it for tens of millions of dollars and build housing and give it to veterans if you wanted to. But instead, UCLA is squatting there and hosting the College World Series regionals. Well, good for them, but I would say overall, we need to put pressure on UCLA. Be a good steward of our resources. You're supported by taxpayers. You're supported by our community. Please get off the land, give it back to the veterans who need it, and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. That's my take for the week. When you see, I'd love to get your feedback or interest or questions or comments. Reach out to me, call, text, or email. I'm on social media at Bill Goes Probate. And as always, make today your best day ever.